now. Okay, so goals. Last time. Focus, Jordan, focus. Karen, you're going to take the exercise we did last week and give it some structure and dive into hard places. How'd that go?
I did that. It went really well. I really appreciated it just helps me in my own mind to try and put a spine onto what I'm trying to do. So that lesson is really valuable.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. I love that. Put a spine to it. Yes. All right, Jesse, how did those comp titles come in? Oh no, did we lose you? Oh, you're kind of frozen there.
Here I am. Yeah, no, nothing happened. I didn't do anything this week. I researched my family tree. That's what I've been doing nonstop
Ever
since
that presentation.
Since your special class. Yeah. So I found so many amazing things, and I've been writing things for my family, but nothing. Yeah. Otherwise, I did nothing.
Well, you know what? It wasn't nothing.
I had a really, really hard week.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear.
Yeah.
Well, those are the weeks where you
yeah.
really have to cut yourself slack for not getting your goals met. Okay. Well, thanks for being here. Kay, you are going to take some academic writing that you've done in the past and put your own story into it. How's that going?
I kind of took a different route, and I was kind of like just talking about someone with something, and I realized that it was kind of a humorous story. So I decided to just write like a humorous piece. And I was talking last week about how everything I write is so serious. And,
Yes.
you know, painful, but I decided to just write something humorous. And I started that, and it's good. And
Good.
I got the book Naked Drunk and Writing, and kind of follow some of the things she says.
Yeah.
Although she was saying that like the epiphany and everything isn't necessary in a humorous piece.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of working with what that genre demands.
That's awesome. I'm glad you got the book. Yeah, she does. She wrote a lot of humor, I think, so she might be a good source. Yeah. All right. Natani, you were gonna finish your money essay. That face. Aw.
No, May. I don't know why I try to do anything in May.
Oh.
A garbage month for me. So
I'm sorry. But you're showing up today. Okay, good. No beating oneself up, I hope. Okay. Debbie, you were gonna just write.
Well, I didn't. I mean, I started, but then I stopped. But what I started was taking the book you talked about last week, Breaking Ground on Your Memoir, and I started treating it as a workbook instead of as a book to read.
Oh, nice.
So I'm taking it chapter by chapter and doing what it's saying to do in each chapter. So I'm hoping that will get me moving.
Awesome. Well, I really love that approach. That sounds fantastic.
Thank you.
For some reason, Suman, I don't have your goal written down. I don't know if you had to leave early or if I just.
Jordan, remember I had the other thing with the music too. Since
that's what it was.
But I did watch everything, and I did do the exercise as if I were in the room. I did do all of that.
Awesome. All right.
This is a great class.
And same, Shafali, I know you were not.
Yes, I did. I wasn't able to make it that week, but I also read it. I did not. I always give my comments later, not the next one. So they'll be coming. I'll send them to her or to the group if everybody wants to see them. So it was a good piece. So I don't know if she's here today, but it was a nice piece. So yeah, and I think my goal from the previous week was to kind of take one of those stories and kind of work on them, but that didn't happen. It's still a to do. It's still a to do. So
that's all right. Gentle accountability here. No whips come out, you know. It's and really I do encourage you to look for ways you can count something towards your work. Like, oh, I spent 15 minutes thinking about it, or I read through my old work. Like there are lots of things that still count, you know, as quote unquote writing. I'm a big fan of that because I think
I did ponder some things.
Yeah, pondering counts, ruminating, contemplating.
Okay,
but
that's good.
Part of it is because I think we need to get out of the mindset of I achieved a goal or I didn't, I'm good, I'm bad. And I really want people to think instead, like, you know, I have this whole talk I give on building a writing practice. And in fact, I'll be teaching a course on it in the fall. And what that is about is, very much about finding all the reasons why you write, why it matters to you, what you're doing it for, and then counting everything you do, everything, even if it's not actually writing, because it's like, I'm just tired of this, like, good, bad, I wrote, I didn't write. You have a writing practice and it looks different every day. Sometimes it looks like actually writing, and sometimes it doesn't. So,
Imagining writing sometimes. I just want to throw this out there quickly. Sometimes when I'm reading other people's, the work in this class, I get a lot of ideas for, oh, that would sound good. Not just like a similar thing, but so I sometimes
generates.
jot those down or think about those. So
Absolutely. Well, I love that. Thank you for that. Jesse, I caught you. Did I miss everybody? Did I get everybody? Okay. All right, my friends, we're gonna move on to talk a little bit more about structure today. I just realized, is this our last class of this session? Hang on. It is, isn't it?
It is.
Just double checking, even though I know it is, because my brain wants confirmation. Not funny. Yeah. Okay. So then I'm going to be taking a good chunk of the summer off, and then we will pick back up in, I think August is when August 11th is when I'm planning. So I did open registration now in case anyone, wants to just clinch their spot. And I will be sending out at the end of this month, my website will hopefully be done and it will have all my classes in one place, except for some of my ongoing workshops. Anyways, that I will be sending that out. So just so you know, I want to make sure you guys have first dibs if you do want to continue. That's important to me. So, okay. Let's get started, shall we? Okay. All right, so today I'm going to continue to talk about narrative structure, and I'll be talking about it a little bit. I want to set you up with what like a narrative arc looks like from a visual standpoint, and then I want to talk about front story versus backstory, which are all parts of that structure. And I love this quote: in the writer's mind, even a backstory has a backstory. We can always go deeper and further and ad nauseum, right? So it's really kind of a matter of figuring out what is the story we're trying to tell. So just kind of a recap of what we have done so far. We made that memory dump list, and then we kind of tried to sort them into categories. And this is something I encourage you to do ongoing if you're still writing, you haven't finished a draft. And then kind of pick ones to flesh out and turn into full scenes if you're struggling with where to go next. And we started talking about, in a narrative arc. We've talked about inciting incident. What is the main event that starts the story into motion? Where is it going? How does the narrator change over time? So I like this visual because it kind of shows you that story structure has a shape or an energy. And I like that. I like thinking of it as having a shape or an energy. And in a memoir, we often start our memoirs with a little bit of exposition and background information. Although more and more I'm finding memoirs start with a bang and scene as well. So you kind of have the ability to go either way. And then there has to be a point of conflict. And for me, this is the inciting incident. It doesn't say that on here, but where this little V of the above conflict is, this is where something happens that creates a problem for the protagonist, right? And I like to think of that as a point of no return. So picking that point for your story is very important. And then we've got this concept of rising action, which is that things continue to grow in some kind of intensity. So you show the challenging parts, the conflict, the inner conflict, outer conflict. You show these parts of your story building in some kind of intensity. You want to let the reader know we're going somewhere. There's going to be a high point here. This is kind of the bulk of your story. This will be like the middle of your story is quite a lot of pages. So it's like thinking about picking those events out of that list of memories. What are the key turning points in my life? What are the key in this story I'm trying to tell? What were the key events that really sum up or changed me or contributed to this high point, this climax of the story I'm going to tell you? And, it can take a little time to figure out what those pieces are, because you might not be telling your whole life story. You might be telling the story of 1 year in your life or 10 years. So this is like the work is all in figuring out what is that rising action, and do each of these moments, after we read each one, does the reader go, okay, I understand why they told us that one because it relates to the last one, or I get a sense that this is building a scaffolding of some kind of story. And then we hit eventually. Now in fictional technique, there's also often something called a crisis or a dark night. And that can come before the climax, where things get really hard, or it seems like your narrator's goal or desires or hopes are crushed or looking like they're not going to be achieved. So you might have a crisis in there, or you might have some mini crises along the way before you get to that climax, which is, the climax is the high point of a story. And here they say the most exciting part of the story. And that can mean exciting in a good way or in a bad way. For the most part, like from a fictional standpoint, this is usually when antagonist and protagonist clash or have their big blowout. But this could be your moment of epiphany. This could be when you finally were able to change something in your life, or something changed whether you chose it or not. And you really want to be able to show your narrator as being different by the climax than they were at the beginning. You want to, so sometimes I ask, who do you want the protagonist to be at the climax? Is it the version of you that was, healed or fully realized, or, reached some reunion with his estranged father? I'm just throwing stuff out there. So who you want yourself to be at that juncture, then sometimes you can work backwards from that and think, okay, well, what are the events then that I want to show that will allow my narrator to appear how I want them to appear here? And in fictional terms, this is where your protagonist is going to overcome, is going to achieve their goals, but it might be hard won. So it was through a struggle, it was painful, there was loss involved, but your narrator achieved their goal or their vision, or came to an understanding of some kind. And then really, there's not a whole lot that happens after climax, except, so we've got falling action is maybe summing up, tying up the things that come after that. So after the epiphany, then what happens? What did or the achievement of goal, or whatever however you want to qualify your climax. What did the narrator do next? What is left outstanding that still needs to be shown or explained? And maybe setting us up to understand where your narrator went from there. So it's sort of like tying up all the ends. So this is a very, very simple story arc. I've got much more complicated ones. In fact, I have another slide here to show you a different look at how some other takes on it. So instead of that straight line with rising action, right, we've got problems, obstacles, while chasing desire. I like that one better. It looks like stair steps. You know what I mean? And then we still build to a climax, a high point, but this I think visually is a little more accurate, right? So it's more complex. And then, so these are helpful. I think you might, when you get these slides, you can print either of these. And then also there's many other story structures. There's the hero's journey, which is kind of like a 12-beat story structure. There's the one that I like to use, which is from Martha Alderson. She has this plot planner, which is built around 4 energetic markers, which are kind of like big turning points. I like that one, but it's all about what you're comfortable with. Okay, so we actually didn't, I don't know that we actually did do this last week, because I decided I was going to skip for complicated reasons. I'm skipping a lesson sort of, but it's kind of worked into this one at the same time. But we have talked about this in one way or another throughout this class. What is it that my narrator is pursuing or wants at the beginning of the story, right? And then what I want us to look at today is, when did my narrator get or not get this desire? So I guess we should kind of do have to play with this. Let me just see what the next slide looks like. Hold on, I'm skipping ahead for a second. Okay. So what I want you to think about is that, if you look at your memoir and you imagine that your protagonist has a big desire or goal for themselves in the course of this story, what is that desire? And when in the story does your narrator definitely get or achieve or not achieve this goal? So it's 2 questions I want you to answer. What is the big desire drawing or goal drawing your narrator on? And when in your story do they definitely get it or not get it? If you can identify those moments. And you don't have to write scenes, you can just write these as answers in some capacity. Does this make sense? I've got some uncertain looks here. Okay, give it a try. So just try to think in sentences. Don't feel like you have to write scenes, but if that's what comes out, that's fine too.
Are you asking us to take our last week's work and
No,
continue?
don't even worry about last week. Just
Okay.
ignore that. Ignore that sentence at the top that says last week we asked. All I want you to think about is what was your narrator, what is the driving desire or goal that is driving your narrator on in the memoir you're trying to write. So
Okay.
what are they after? What do they want? Like the big want that they want, you know, is it to understand why they were, you know, left behind as a child, to fulfill a destiny of some kind, you know?
But the tentacle things come out of the closet. But yeah, I think so.
All right, start to wrap up your thoughts. So briefly, let's go around and share. I'd like to hear what your narrator's big want is and when and if they were able to definitively get it or not get it. Karen.
Okay, my protagonist just wants to feel comfortable in her own body. She yearns for self-acceptance. And when she actually achieved it, I'm not really sure about this. This is why I was working on the spine of the way it's set up. My protagonist had a breast reduction at age 20 years, but still struggled. She became comfortable and understanding with her body after open heart surgery at 36,
Wow.
which created a mind shift about the physicality of everything.
Wow.
So I'm
that's
struggling with where my climax is.
Right. Well, I mean, and you might have to write your way to it. You might not know right now. Like it's a hard intellectual exercise. You have to kind of get there. But from just what you've described, it sounds right on track. So good. Who would like to go next? Okay, I'll start calling on you. Shefali. And you're muted.
I wrote a lot of ramblings here. Let's see which one I'll start with. I said, all right, the goal is to pursue daily joy and share that with loved ones instead of pursuing goals that may lead to joy if they're fulfilled correctly. Living in the moment without needing labels or affirmation about the path, getting more and more centered in the now, relinquishing degrees, licenses, certificates, academic achievements, etc., as sole barometers of worth, allowing pleasure, not fully hedonistic, but some maybe simple pleasures aligned with daily duties, allowing this to guide my path, and then respecting knowledge, creativity, and learning for its own sake, reclaiming my access to it without needing a clear ego-driven direction.
Nice. Nice. Good work. Jesse.
Okay. Mine's just rambles as well. My narrator's big want is to have her life back to how it was before the injury and to be pain-free. She wants to be whole and well. She wants to wake up in the morning without pain. She wants to go to sleep at night without pain. She wants to dance and run again. She wants to drive again. She wants to be able to eat and drink without worrying about swallowing issues. My narrator never gets what she wants, but does discover a tool that helps her live a much higher quality of life than before.
Nice. Yeah, and that's another point, is that in your story, your narrator may not have fully achieved their goal. They may only get a piece of it, or the journey to discover might be meaningful enough even without the achievement of the goal. So, Kay.
Okay. So the inciting incident is that I get asked with my family to be an extra in a Bollywood film. And at the time, my narrator is trying to find love in her own life. And the big want is that, and that she doesn't want an arranged marriage that her family expects her to have, and to find someone very traditional in her own community and things like that. And she feels very much like she might disappoint them and not meet their traditional expectations. And then the plot of the film is similar in some of these regards. The film becomes like a vehicle to talk about the narrator's life, and this is the piece I wanted to write that was humorous, so there's some like humorous things that come up in the scenes at the set of the film. So yeah.
Nice.
But largely it's about trying to find belonging in family and culture and all of that.
Nice. And does your narrator find it, or does she grapple with it?
I think not in the space of this essay.
Right. but it will be funny, and that's what matters.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Debbie.
The starting moment is even as a very little girl, sitting in a prayer community and being profoundly engaged by it without even being able to identify it. The big want is fulfilling her spiritual and professional calling. When did the narrator definitely get this? After a lifetime of longing, but always on a linear path, always going forward, each professional or volunteer step unknowingly leading to the next, not knowing she was absolutely on the path, but in retrospect, experiencing a series of doors opening, leading to the climactic moment of opportunity.
I like that. I think so much of the meaning and messages that we get out of our memoirs are learned retrospectively, right? Because we don't tend to make the meaning as much in the moment because we can't always see it. And so that's the beauty of memoir, which I love. I love though that it's like looking back, you can see she was on the right path. That's great. Simone?
I don't know what inciting moments to write because I feel like it's like a lot. It was just like control. There was just so much control in her life in every single aspect, whether it was how she behaved, where she was, what she did, what she didn't do, what she ate, what she thought, everything. So, and then her really big desire was to get away and kind of like find herself. And finally, and so she really wants to do that. She wants to understand herself, but she does want to forgive and heal, and finds that she is able to. And what she really wants to do by writing this memoir is track it and figure out like what really happened. How was she able to forgive and heal, understanding it.
Nice. Yeah, good. I like that. Natani, do you want to share? All right. Okay. So let's keep going here. So what we want to start thinking about is what, maybe not a single lesson, but what are the lessons that come out of your narrator achieving or not achieving their goal? Now, again, lesson might be too grandiose a word. Maybe it's just a realization. Maybe it's a change in perspective. Maybe it's, you know, some other kind of shift. But it's like, I guess you could also look at it as how is my narrator different based on the fact that they either did or did not achieve their goal, you know, and you know, so however you want to answer this question, go ahead, and I'll give you a few minutes. And again, I'm not going to give us a lot of minutes for these questions, but This whole time I'm like, why is nobody listening to me? I was on mute. Your time's up. Oh my God. I was like, you're ignoring me. That's weird.
Puppy.
Okay, sorry. My own tripped up by my own technology. Okay, I was calling on you, Debbie. Yeah, to read if you want. Or Anna.
Yeah, I liked this. Thank you.
Oh, good.
What are the lessons learned? Had the calling been realized earlier in life, I would not have been successful. My ego would have dominated many of my interactions. What do they think of me? Am I doing a good job? Do they like me? Who doesn't and why? By achieving my want so late in life, I was able to truly remove my own ego most of the time and be of service to the community, representing and modeling and teaching the religious beliefs and ethics and morality of my faith. The lesson is that sometimes things happen not when we want them, but exactly when they should.
I like that. I like that a lot. That's great. Thank you, Debbie. All right. Simone.
Mine's a bit messy. I don't know. So the lesson, I don't know if I wrote this properly, but so I really wanted to be a different person, be the opposite of who I was in my childhood. I married a man, gentle, loving, the opposite of my father. I tried to be the opposite of my mom and try to answer and explain everything and encourage kids, believing I was being a good person, a good human being, a good parent. And somehow I believed that if you do things right, it would all be good, and yet found things going wrong as a wife, as a mother, as life happens, which is when I realized how hard parenting really is, and that you can try really hard and still mess up. And so I've never wrote this part, but as a family, we got together and decided to overhaul everything and work things out. And so that was when I decided I would try and do the same thing with my parents back in India, and really took the time to understand everyone in my, I really took the time to understand everyone in my life that was important, like my parents, my husband, my kids, my sibling, and realized that there was so much in them that needed a show of compassion, and there was so much that she could connect with them. By she, I mean I. And more than anything, I realized that it was my own problems. I think I referred to them sometime back. I was having some issues, which I realized during my college days, of my brain and memory. And it was when I started being useful to society again that I started healing, and I felt like, oh, I can give back to society. Which really helped me get into the path of healing.
That's wonderful. I love that. Thank you. All right, Jessie.
Okay, my narrator learns that sometimes there are health issues that just can't be fixed. She learns that doctors are often only confident in their healing capabilities until their treatments fail. She learned traditional healthcare doesn't have all the answers. She learned that risks come with reward. She learned that non-traditional treatments can sometimes be more powerful than Western medicine. She learns that a beautiful and meaningful life can be lived around the pain.
Oh, I like that last line especially. I really like the gray areas when we can look at the fact that, very rarely are we writing a story in which everything magically is healed and perfect by the end, right? So most of us are writing a story of, I learned something, but yes, there might still be pain, but I think that's where I find the beauty. It's like learning to live around the pain. That's just such a perfect line. Work that into that book. Okay. Karen, did I already call on you? No, I'm having like,
Okay, lessons learned, not to be afraid to take control and make choices that may not be acceptable to everyone. Surgery doesn't solve everything. Some behaviors are difficult to unlearn. My protagonist learned that she wasn't crazy or exaggerating society's response to her large breasts, because once they were gone, she was treated differently. She learned to trust herself. She learned self-acceptance is a journey, not a destination, and that the human body is an amazing machine, and only that, and there is nothing wrong with hers.
Wow, I love that. I really love that, especially about having the experience of being different after surgery and how that, like a true test, right, of how you were treated, how your narrator's treated. It's great. Okay.
Okay, so the lesson learned is that everyone has a preconceived notion of what it means to be Indian, and it really doesn't mean anything at all. Doesn't mean any one thing. Family expects a traditional marriage. Grad school friends expect a radical political identity and look down on marriage. The filmmakers in this film think means Indian means wearing Gap clothes and staying traditional at the same time. And the narrator learns that to be happy, she has to find her own way and stop meeting everyone's expectations.
Nice. I like that. I like that conclusion.
Mhm.
Shafali.
Okay. So based on what I last wrote, I wrote the narrator is moving in this direction because I feel like she's not there. Those were kind of goals to be in. I wrote, there are several moments where she is re-tempted to pick up certain hats, and those are fine too. She enjoys creating sub goals and challenges out of a sense of joy, but ultimately wants to stay grounded in where she is now without being attached to a need to achieve. So, and then I wrote, I think these are just in a thought process form. So I wrote, there's a fine line between pursuing goals for joy and connection and for growth and healing, and pursuing those for proving self-worth or external acceptance. And I feel like the narrator, me, whatever, is moving towards there, but
yeah,
sometimes still doubting a little bit.
Again,
tricked again. Yeah.
The gray areas I think are the most interesting, where it's like, it's like, even though life is painful and heartbreaking at times, it's also still beautiful and meaningful, but it's how you live it and how you make that meaning for yourself that's interesting and significant. So good work, everybody. Did I skip anyone? Okay. All right. So let me just look into something real quick. Okay, I'm going to skip this last exercise as I want to speak to Frontstory and Backstory. So when we're talking about our narrative arc, we're talking about, we have a story that runs kind of the urgent present tense story, and then we often have flashbacks into the past, right, that we need to tell about. And sometimes it can be confusing to figure out, where do I put what? So we have these two concepts, front story and backstory. Front story is, this is the story I'm telling you now. And in order to tell you the story, occasionally I'm going to drop into this thing called backstory, which ideally will be in the form of flashback scenes or little memories, not a lot of exposition. But when we talk about, these two things, which do you think is the most urgent, the reason the reader is reading, front story or backstory? Just take a guess. Anyone? You're all muted, so I can't hear anyone.
Front story.
Front story. So front story is, this is the reason I'm telling you this story now, or this is the time period I want you to follow. This is the story I'm unfolding for you, whichever way you want to look at it. It's the now of the story. It has the most urgency, and it's tied to that big goal or the question that your narrator is asking, and your inciting incident. So I've got your hike to Mount Everest, finding and meeting your biological mother, changing careers, leaving your spouse. So front story is what drives the reader's interest, really. And it is comprised largely of scenes and events that happen to your narrator with some meaning making. So here's an example. This is from, I happened to be reading this memoir by Michael J. Fox at the time when I put this together. I'm going down. It's a flash fall, vertical to horizontal in a blink. I twist my head to save my face from my collision with the kitchen tile. What the hell just happened? I rise up on my right elbow, expecting to shift my weight to the left and push up onto my feet. Surprise, I can't feel my left arm. As my shock subsides, it's clear that I need help. So this is how the book starts. And this is a memoir about the actor Michael J. Fox, who's been living with Parkinson's early onset since I think his 40s or 30s. And this, he's written about his Parkinson's a lot. This story is about him. He's basically considers himself an optimist, right? And so this is him grappling with the potential loss of his optimism as he goes through this really challenging, he falls, he breaks his arm, and having he's learned to live with his Parkinson's, but he's also, he's been relatively independent. Now this happens and he starts to lose his independence. So we start in the moment, in the present. This is what happens, the fall. Backstory is all the stuff that comes before the timeline of the front story. So whether that's the way back past or that's yesterday, it's all backstory if it hasn't happened yet, right? And it's information the reader doesn't know. It may take the form of memories and flashback scenes. You might have other devices you use like letters or diaries or historical documents to reveal backstory. But what it has to do is it has to inform the front story, not pull us out of the momentum. So it's like, I wrote here, so your hike to Mount Everest is because you survived cancer and are setting new challenges. So you might be in the process of hiking Everest and having a really hard day. And then you flash back to, well, no, that wasn't hard. Chemotherapy was hard, something like that. Or you're meeting your biological mother now because you're pregnant with your own first child. So these things do you see how they have to be connected, right? So you're dropping into the past when and where it will help to inform the front story. So as in a backstory example from the same book, he writes, after 30 years of Parkinson's, I've established a sort of détente with the disease. We have a history together. I've long realized that control is out of the question. So he's just kind of giving you this summary. And then he goes into a memory. The day before the accident, I flew back to Manhattan in the middle of our summer vacation. Tracy was concerned about me staying in New York by myself. I was still what we would both describe as a little wobbly on my feet. So he's telling us, here's what happened. I'm going to walk you back in time and set you up for kind of what the stakes were for me before this fall. He was about to appear in a Spike Lee produced movie and, go back to his vacation with his family. So he had all this going on. Then he has the fall, right? So the backstory that he chooses is very relevant to the front story. It's filling you in on what came before and how he got where he's going and what he stands to lose. Okay. So our last exercise of the day, I promise. I would like you to pick a moment of your front story to write about in scene. It can be anywhere you want, inciting incident, just pick a little scene, but really try to focus on something in the front story, the urgent, this is the story I'm telling you now, and stay out of any backstory if you can, any explanation. So pick a moment, like think moment, action, event, dialogue, and write about it. Then we will. Okay. Find a stopping point. Sorry, I'm gonna stop this, close this up, the thing that's making noise. All right. So I would like to hear from you. Shefali, would you like to start?
Sure. I don't know what I wound up writing. I was distracted for a little bit
Okay.
by our dog, and then I wound up writing a little bit something about her. I don't know. This kind of, I think I added some backstory. I don't know what I did here. So, okay, I'll just read what I wrote. Okay, I wrote, I blurted out, and then again, trying to get the sound right. I was trying to warn off our new puppy Melody from gnawing on our large wooden dining chair. She ducked down her tawny beige head, duly chastised, and I felt immediately guilty. I was supposed to be training her and setting limits. I want you to have fun, Melody, but I don't want you to eat or topple over the furniture, I said, mumbling semi-aloud to both myself and the new pup. She looked back at me with her large brown sweet eyes, accepting my dictates smoothly, easily. Why couldn't I command myself as simply? Why couldn't I accept my mistakes as nonchalantly and get over them and just be happy in the moment?
Oh, I love that. That's great.
What corny, but
It's no, you didn't pull backstory in. You did a great job.
oh, okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Kay.
Okay, so this is the absurdity of Bollywood filmmakers, that they can buy the rights to Roy Orbison's Pretty Woman and turn it into a peppy pop song with rap elements and hip hop dancing. I drove with my cousin to the Queens neighborhood where the song number was to be filmed. He was escorted to a different street where they were filming a garage band scene, and I had no idea what that meant. I was told to sit on the porch of a house as they filmed the dancers on the street. I sat and waited for when they would tell me to come on screen. The director's assistant told me that they could not use me in the scene that day, but I'd still be paid $50. I asked why. He said that they had asked us to wear barbecue attire, and I was wearing an Indian kurta, and so I couldn't be on screen. I felt befuddled. This was a Bollywood movie with Indian people, and I was told that wearing a kurta was not something you wore to a barbecue. No one told me that this director had popularized Gap clothing in India. Of course, I couldn't be in the scene.
I love it. I can't wait to see where this goes. Thank you, Kay.
I want to see the movie.
I know.
Oh, I'm in it for like a nanosecond because
Just
I'm in
send us
a
that little clip.
yeah, okay. I'm in a different scene for a nanosecond, and that one I wasn't in at all. So
Your moment of fame squelched.
oh yeah, because the lead star has such a big head and he was walking in front of me. He totally ruined my debut.
See? This essay is writing itself.
That's so cute.
All right, Karen.
I'm on the exam table when he knocks and enters. Dr. Lee. In a small town like Petaluma, everyone knows everyone. I house sit for him. Just try to relax, he says with a smile on his face. There are a few things that we need to do for the insurance. First of all, we need photographs. I am wearing a hospital gown with nothing on underneath. Please pull down the gown for me, he says. He says it gently, but I flinch. How badly do you really want this? I ask myself again. I close my eyes and lower my top. I can hear the camera clicking. My face burns. No one, not even my sisters, have seen my bare naked breasts. My heart is racing. Good job, says Dr. Lee. Now I need to take some measurements. I'm going to make some lines on your chest. As the pen circles my nipples, I ask myself again, how badly do you really want this?
Wow. Really good job putting us in the moment, in the just awkward and uncomfortable situation that your narrator is in. I love the self-talk that she's doing to get herself through it, right? Like she has a goal and she has to, but it's so sad that even in achieving her goal, she's still subject to more humiliation. Like, I'm like, why was there not a woman, a doctor available? And nowadays, like if you have a male doctor, they have to have a chaperone, a female chaperone. So it's just like, ugh, the indignities that women must face in their pursuit of health. Thank you. Jesse.
I held my neck in the tiny, stark white room, shifting my weight back and forth on the exam table, trying to find a comfortable position. The stiff white paper crinkled under me as I moved. There was no comfortable position. But still, my mind told me to try. I held my neck, subconsciously guarding it from any more physical or emotional trauma. The surgeon came in for my follow-up appointment. It had been several months since my multi-level spinal fusion, a surgery my surgeon had seemed so sure would give me my life back. Your incision looks great, he said, seeming to admire his own work. Doc, I'm still in excruciating pain. Is there anything we can do? Can you extend my physical therapy? He turned and looked at me. At this point, it seems like you're just doctor shopping, he said. Doctor shopping, a code word healthcare providers use to describe drug-seeking behavior. I'd heard it many times before, nurses and doctors whispering about patients in the hospital. It's a way for healthcare professionals to release themselves from all responsibility of a patient. She's just doctor shopping.
Wow. Wow, that's really screwed up on the same topic of mistreatment in healthcare. Wow, I'm excited to read your book. All right, Suman.
May I skip? Because it's
Can you
It's
say, can you skip?
yes, please. It's just
Of course.
rubbish. It's total rubbish.
You can pass at any time. No pressure. Debbie.
I finished my interview with the application committee. I didn't expect to be accepted because of my age and lack of advanced secular education. The interview committee was meeting in the boardroom. I and another candidate were sitting in the adjacent library. The library was dark and smelled of old books. It felt very claustrophobic and I wanted to leave. But I couldn't because, though the committee wasn't aware of it, we could hear their deliberations, and I didn't like what I heard. They were asking one another if they could accept someone who was not degreed. So obviously, I was the subject of the conversation. It was a hot debate, embarrassing for me. I recognized one voice, the person familiar with my old newspaper. Quote, she obviously has an exceptional background, but how will her admittance affect our application for accreditation? She asked. My own insecurities put me on the side of those who were challenging my admittance. But I had a friend with a similar background who was accepted into graduate school because of her life experiences. Would they take my life experiences into account and accept me too?
Nice. I love it. These are great starts, really good work. So let's see, I think there might be a couple more slides, but I want to get to our critique pretty soon here. So let me just see. So obviously we would do a backstory exercise after that. So then you would think like, what would be a good memory to illustrate, this point. Now, I don't know if the point you chose has a good backstory, but what I want you to be thinking about as you go is like, think in these threads. There's the front story, there's the backstory, and the front story might be like a nice line and the backstory might be like this, whoop, right? Because you may not have a backstory scene or memory every page, every chapter, every scene. You might have just a few, you might have certain ones to illustrate, or you might do a braided style where every other chapter or scene is present and past, depending on what you're trying to do. So we're not going to do this exercise, but keep it in mind and maybe try it for yourself. Okay, good. That was the end. But what I want you to just start thinking about is those two sort of lines, or the one line with the little loops of backstory in it. What we really want to make sure we're focusing on is that front story is getting the most attention and that we're staying there and we're not losing the reader. Now, I know some of you have structured your pieces differently or your memoirs differently, so this might feel overwhelming or confusing or like, what do I do now? So don't worry, there are strategies, and you can always you can carve out the front story. You can go through and maybe highlight what is the front story in all of this and how much of this other stuff needs to stay. Or you might decide you do need a braided approach where there's front and back, alternating. So if anyone has questions, since this is the last class of this session, if this raises questions about your work and you want to ask me about it, just reach out to me by email and we can chat, because I don't want to leave you hanging if you are in that position. Okay, so let's just take like a quick 3-minute break and then we will move on to Suman's critique, okay? Okay. Man, it is really hot. It's not used to this being so hot so soon. I'm like really trying not to use the air conditioning until it's truly summer, you know, it's like out of pride. So I'm just got my old fan here, my cold water.
Jordan, 90 degrees is summer. You can turn on your air conditioner.
California, I know, but I
This is
know,
why you
but the
can't-
thing is, it's going to be this way from July on. It'll be, you know,
That's right.
plus. So I'm trying to like, but you're right, it's hot. It's
It'll
hot.
be 100 degrees soon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, okay, except for my son's birthday, in which it often rains, June 8th. Yeah.
Oh,
So
how
whatever.
funny.
It's always hotter in May than it is on his birthday.
That's-
I can't even tell you, it's ridiculous.
That is funny.
Except for the year he was born when it was 105. So I mistakenly believed that every year would be like that. Newborn, nursing, no air conditioning, 105.
Oh,
Husband finally went out. We were so broke. He went out and bought this like one little tiny unit, and I had to sit my little rocking chair right in front of it. It was like a glorified fan. So anyways,
Oh.
memories. All right. Who would like to start talking about? Oh, wait, stop. Go back. I'm trying to make sure I come back to this strategy of having the writer read a couple paragraphs so we kind of get dropped back into your story. So, Suman, just you can pick any paragraph. It can just be one if you want that you
oh my
like.
gosh.
It's mostly just to put us in like the voice of your story.
Oh. Let me look for it. Sorry.
I know. Sorry, I should have given you preparation.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I have the wrong one up. I have the
Okay.
the untruncated one up. So let me just.
Well, you could read from that. Oh, it might not be the same.
No, it's a little different. Sorry. I'm gonna just start from the beginning, I guess, just because.
Okay.
Sorry about that. It went right to the bottom. Come on, page two.
I sprung this on you. I could also read it for you.
Sorry. Yeah, I got it. I'm so sorry. Here it is. Yeah. April 16, 2021. Your daddy is so sweet and peaceful these days, Nani. My 76-year-old mom gushed, characteristically elongating her O's and heightening her pitch. My eyes welled up, and it wasn't just the overactive hormone receptors of my menopausal brain. We'd been chatting for an hour, the 8,000 miles between Calcutta and California bridged instantly by WhatsApp. In the past 2 days, 2 of my cousins had delivered babies, the latest one just hours ago in the northeast Indian Himalayan town of Darjeeling, 7,000 feet high. On the western side of the world, feeling doubly connected by plant DNA as I savored the muscatel flavors of my fragrant Darjeeling tea, Mum filled me in with details beyond the shorthand social media postings keeping me apprised daily. 4 new family members had been added just during this pandemic. When would I see the little darlings? When would I see the whole family? I sighed audibly into my phone, thinking,
Sorry, it sounded like a pause. I wasn't cutting you up.
oh, tell me when to stop, actually.
I was just 1 or 2 paragraphs.
Okay. Thinking I was yawning early morning yet again, Mom opined, you must sleep more, Nani. You are not taking care of yourself. And don't forget Raj Yoga, Yogasan, and Pranayam. Meditation, yoga postures, and breathing exercises. I smiled at the words flung out in reminder, components of a holistic 8-pronged yoga practice that was part of a daily regimen. I have practiced yoga erratically for 4 decades since I began as an 11-year-old. Along with dance and books, they have kept me sane through the years, yet I invariably abandoned it when I needed the most. Of course, Mom was right, and I dutifully promised to resume my practice for the umpteenth time. Evidently, yoga had helped Dad too, since he started a few years ago. Should I stop there?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right. Who would like to start first? Karen.
Simon, I didn't have a chance to put this in an email, but I'll put it in afterwards. I loved reading this. I didn't want it to stop where it did because I just wanted to hear more and more. it kind of unfolded like a movie for me. And the heat for me was the universality of it. You created likable, relatable characters. The conversation with your mom, I'm like her in so many ways. When did that happen? I really liked that line. You had great descriptions of your dad. And I personally could totally relate to that entire environment because I grew up with that exact same dad. All of it, which is good and bad. And the insight into your dysfunctional family, the conceal and ignore, I starred, and I was really happy to hear that at some point it was resolved.
Very recently.
Simone, you have to be quiet. I love you, but
I mean, that was nice as the reader to hear that it was resolved, and it was nice closure for me when your dad said, "I thought that I was being a good parent." Just that whole scene caught the kind of the relief of knowing what had motivated him, and the joy of knowing your father as a person as opposed to your parent. And I had a very similar experience, and so I really related to that. The line, "I had peaked and crashed at 13." Oh, that one just got me. And I started this labeling a child exceptional or a genius was a form of manipulation. Again, so universal, so relatable for me in my life and my kids' lives. And I really enjoyed the musing about religion. Again, so universal, so relatable. And your descriptions were fascinating of the clothes and the school culture and the falling in love or not falling in love. There I would have loved more physical description, but I seem like I write that on everybody's because I just gobble up the physical descriptions. I loved your reference to Lydia Bennett. And the closing line, "Be Zen," that was just like a real, I mean, I wanted to go on, but that was also a gut punch line at the end for me. I loved this piece. I will read this when you finish it.
thanks, Karen. All right, who would like to go next?
I'll go next.
Jesse.
I also really, really enjoyed reading your piece, Simone. So many beautiful poetic lines. Let's see, I'm going to go through my Word document and I'll send it over to you, but I gotta open each comment. I love like when this part, like right at the beginning, when you said we've been chatting for an hour, the 8,000 miles between Calcutta and California bridged instantly by WhatsApp. Beautifully written line and such a great visual that just really, demonstrates the divide between the narrator and her mom at that time. I also love that line about savoring the muscatel flavors. That's so poetic, so pretty. Let's see. And I loved so many of your descriptions. I love this where you say, "I could almost hear her memory rewind machine squeaking." I love that. It just adds so much visual to just the whole idea of her, her thought process. I love when I love when the narrator goes into the part about, talking to her dad and talking about the New Year's Eve ball at the beginning. And I know this is part of a larger piece, but if I was reading this as one piece or one chapter, I feel like this would be a really, really great place to start the story. But I think, maybe with the rest of it, it might be more woven in. Again, I love another beautiful description: "Tasted the luscious peaches and delicate musk instead of the hint of vomitus my sensitive palate usually detected." Such a great sensory experience there in that line. And there's so many of these lines that I really loved. Let's see. see. Also a marionette with a plastered gin, participation. It's just a beautiful way of conveying your thoughts and your experience through imagery. It's very, very pleasant to read. I love that the narrator gave me this whole experience of her father, where I got these suspicions about their relationship. I could kind of see what was going on. And then she reassured me that I spoke as little as possible in Dad's presence back then. I loved that journey. And then the narrator confirming it. Yes, your suspicions are correct. I love these descriptions that give me a beautiful image of the narrator's father and how challenging it must be, where the narrator describes, precision was of paramount importance to Dad, and then goes through like the meal times and stuff. And it's crystal clear that this man very likely expected, excellence and perfection in all of his areas. Another beautiful line is, we tried gingerly at home, navigating his moods each day as if Mom's fine bone china crockery sets were laid out on the floor like a turf labyrinth. So beautiful, so poetic, conveys so much. I love, this is so indicative of how the narrator feels that she needs to be exceptional to please her father when she's talking about the youngest chess player in the world and how Dad spoke of it constantly at home. And, when the narrator goes into talking about 2.5 years ago, being admitted to St. Marguerite's Puna and talking about the struggle of moving, I can really feel and totally understand how, significantly this transition really impacted the narrator and the narrator's life. I could really, really feel the stress and the emotional roller coaster when the narrator talks about being exhausted every night with the stress of assuming a persona that others approved, but taxed me to the hilts. That was very, very illuminating of, the character and what she was going through. There were so many beautiful, beautiful things. I feel so heartbroken, like at this part. It just broke my heart when the narrator is talking about when her outfit was, ruined by the dog. I was just so brokenhearted for her. I knew she just got it and was so close. And then when she came back in and her dad slapped her, I was just devastated and completely brokenhearted and just wanted to reach out and hug her. I felt so close to the narrator in that. I can really feel the love and connection between the narrator and the mother when she talks about she was the magic of her labor and love, and also the nature of crinkly polka dotted fabric. It's so pretty, it's so beautiful, and yet really, really just clearly illustrates the love that the narrator feels for her mom. Even though, the narrator's already presented this very complex relationship. I love that the narrator brought me back to the papaya and tasting like puke. Like, that was such a significant sensory experience for me in reading it. So I was just really excited to see that back in. I'm forever gonna be wondering when I taste papaya, do I taste puke?
Right, and Jesse, the timer went off a while ago.
Okay, oh, sorry. Okay, so I'll send you, I have a couple others, but I'll send you this Word document with all of it. Beautiful job, beautiful writing, very, very, very beautiful lines.
It's a good critique when someone has so many nice things to say that they just have to keep telling you. I mean, we should all be so lucky, right? Thank you so much. Debbie.
Yeah, the risk of waiting is that the people before you say what you wanted to say. So I didn't want more to go on, but because everything that Karen and Jesse said were my words too. What a wonderful introduction to the cultures that you lived in. The vivid descriptions made everything come alive. The phrases, the descriptive phrases are unique. And sometimes I reread the same sentence over again, not because I didn't understand it, but just because I wanted to savor the choice of words. And this is the first time in our class that I went back to reread the submission a couple of times, just because I appreciated the language, the rhythm, and the colorful descriptions. So what Karen and Jesse said, I double that, but I do have one critique, and that's in contrast to what Karen said. The one area, not surprising, that was a trigger for me was the description of religion. I felt like that all religion was lumped in a box of power, greed, and corruption. And as a reader, I felt judged. So because the language was so precise, it was off-putting. It didn't leave any room for a different point of view. And I know that when a reader goes into a writer's head, we know that what we are reading is the point of view of the writer, not our own point of view. But that section was written with such absolute conviction that as someone who considers herself religious, I was off by it. So that I think it clearly reflects the narrator's thinking, but I'm wondering if there was a way it could be expressed that would have allowed for a different that there you could have made some room for the reader to have a different opinion and not feel like a fool for it. But that's only one paragraph in an otherwise enthralling piece of storytelling. And I hope you continue expanding this. In your introduction, you seemed like you weren't clear if this was going to become something. And I want to tell you it needs to become something. I'm really looking forward to reading more of your life story.
Thank you, Debbie. Who would like to go next? Shefali?
All right, I'm up. So let's see. I would, agree with a lot of what's already been said. I thought it was fascinating. I really enjoyed it. So I'm just gonna, I write my notes. I'm just gonna blurt them out now. The narrator did a great job of bringing the reader the flavor of her world and lifestyle. I sometimes felt like I was being pulled into a more believable and relatable fairy tale type of a story. The narrator was privileged, surely, but not enough that you couldn't or I couldn't relate to her. She was prepping for a ball, after all, but was honest and forthcoming about the areas where she did not fit in and where she was fearful. So she wasn't like the star princess, but she was like one of the attendees of the ball, a more interesting character, more dimensional, multidimensional. So since my background is Indian too, I loved all the references to yoga, the teas, the words, etc. I could relate to all of that, and I really enjoyed that. I spent a lot of summers there, and so I always felt a bit out of sorts. Like we'd meet many different types of relatives and friends and things. So I felt like her jumping around demographically and things. I kind of connected to that, and I think maybe a lot of people from different diaspora and communities might relate to that too, like feeling out of sorts and in a sense where you're relating. What did I write? My notes are a little bit messy here. Gotten over it. Okay. And then I said, the relationship with the parents was very nicely written. I ached for the sensitive, gifted narrator who wanted to connect more with her mother, but was not able to, not wanting to burden her younger sister as well. I got that too. I felt it. The father expecting too much. Yes, I agree with what everyone has been saying. It's very familiar across many cultures. People can relate to that. I think again, I think it's a very South Asian thing, but I think again, many other cultures could relate to that as well. Getting slapped after the incident with the neighbor's dog, again, that was horrible. And I just felt so bad for her. I would second that. I was just grieving for her. The mother coming in later to soothe, I felt that redeemed her. And the mother, and I can see that dynamic. I liked seeing that, the mother not wanting to openly challenge the father and later on coming in at night and soothing her, rubbing her shoulders or whatnot, massaging her. I felt like that's a nice way of putting it, because maybe modern women might be like, oh, you didn't stand up to the father, you didn't say something, but this was what she did do. This is what she could do. And I felt that was strong and courageous in that time frame, in that cultural context. I really enjoyed the whole club scene, like in terms of not like the nightclub, but the club scene. It made me feel, put me into the past mode of India, kind of like a modern version of the British Raj days. It's like this veneer that still exists, probably fading away more now. But when the narrator was younger, when I was younger, it was definitely there. I'd go to India for 6 weeks every couple of years in the summer, and it was there. We'd visit, going to the clubs and get those, club sandwiches with the triangle cucumbers and all of that. And I really, you put me back there very strongly. They're beautiful people decked out in the Indian clothes, filling the tables, spilling over to the bar area. I can see people, you know, trying to escape with the AC, and they're just like what Dora was talking about right now. They're trying to get into the AC, and it's just baking, sweltering outside. And then I liked all of the, you know, the servants or the wait staff are there politely helping, making things easier, smoother, but they're not obsequious, but trying to please. It's a certain old world loyalty and charm. I don't know why it just popped into my mind, like a Downton Abbey sort of a vibe. It's very different culturally, but it's kind of a charming, I wrote that word, that's the word, I found it very charming. A picture of a past, but the relationship dynamics were more modern and current, and it could be placed and found in many settings. The misunderstandings between narrator and parents, their expectations, frustrations, etc. Very beautiful descriptions, as everyone's been saying, nice observations, so many of them. I again stopped and paused many times, just be like, wow, this is so beautifully, what a beautiful turn of phrase. I felt like the narrator opened up to her rich inner experiences and feelings and shared them, willingness to see her vulnerability, loved her love of learning, her passion and curiosity. I liked that she owned that strong female character of wanting to learn and be intelligent, but she was artistic and vulnerable as well. And I did still grieve a little bit. I kept feeling like she needed someone to get her, and I felt bad for her still there. I was like, why isn't someone get her? You know, she's alone. She can't even talk to her sister. And then kind of getting to I like that she was able to eventually process feelings with her father. Like it has been said, life is full of misunderstandings. It was nice when that wrapped up. All the Indian details, the tailors, all of that. I loved all that. I'm familiar with that. And I think that's going to be really unique and interesting for people who are not familiar with that to read. I totally relate to the papaya hate. Everyone is always saying they are loving, they're just like mangoes. No, they're disgusting. I can't stand them. I totally relate. I'd be like, this is, you know, they'd come and serve you, and I like, this is not a mango, this is a papaya, get it away. I love the part Sonia baby is beautiful and grown up today. I can see that scene. I felt like that captured that vibe of that kind of that holdover of the colonial times, but like the good part of that good vibe. The narrator walking between her two lovely parents, reconciled at least at that moment to her place in her family. It seems low at the end. This is what I felt. It seems like there's a lead up to what may be coming with her mother, either being oblivious or maybe ominously foreshadowing, because there's that paragraph where the mom is saying nothing can go wrong. You know, it's everything there's no way any mistakes can happen. So I sort of felt like maybe that's correct. Maybe nothing can go wrong, but the way the story portrays it, you kind of know that the mom has gotten several things wrong with the daughter and is not, you know, always in touch with what's happening. So it kind of set me up to think, are you going forward and trying to say something now is going to happen that is very opposite that? Like, are you setting us up for like, okay, like a comedic experience or some disastrous experience? Or I was very curious. It definitely pulled me in with the curiosity, but I don't know if I felt like it was all going to go rosy. I was almost curious. Oh, sorry. I was almost, oh, I think you're mute. So that's all I would say. I just loved it. I thought it was great too. So
sorry to be the time.
No, that's okay.
Today, but I have to be done like a hard stop before 5. So I'm trying to get us.
No, that's good. I just loved it. It was great.
Thank you so much. Kay.
Yeah, I just, everything everybody said. I read several parts of this before because Suman and I are in a writing group, and so I'd love seeing the evolution of the pieces being put together in one piece. And, you know, just what everyone said, the language is so poetic and beautiful, and it really creates a certain time period, an environment that is relatable, but still its own thing, right? That it's so vivid that anyone who's even not familiar with it can experience it, live it. It's palpable how afraid the narrator is of her father and how stifling that is. All of the descriptions about that are so emotional, and you know, you really feel for her. And she's so unpretentious, you know, she's just so honest and observant of her environment, and reporting that just genuinely, without judgment, without, you know, like she's not judging her father at all throughout all of this. It's just what I saw is mostly observation, right? And she's not saying, oh, he was a horrendous man. Like, there's no judgment. And I thought that was really, really interesting, and put us in that voice of innocence. But I feel like, it's interesting that we had this lesson on Frontstory Backstory today, because I think there's something, if anything can be done with this more, is that the front story can be more developed and we could see the voice of experience a little bit. So like when there's resolution and she comes to understand why her father was the way he was, I need to know a lot more there. Like one thing that would really help me is if we could humanize him a little bit with his own backstory. So why is he like this? I think there's like the slightest mention of like he didn't have things, so this is why he's doing this to his daughter. But I think we need some backstory of what his childhood was like, or what he felt was missing in his life. Because like even, as a reader, I read not really liking him. And but obviously the narrator loves him. This is her father, right? So I feel like as a reader, I need to have him humanized a little bit more. And the resolution, I think, comes too quickly, because it's like we go from the childhood to now, and there's nothing in between. And I don't know, like it just seems like at the snap of a finger it's resolved, right? And I'm sure it wasn't. So life doesn't work that way. So I think we need to see either a gradual progression of it, or enough of a front story that we understand at the moment that this conversation happens, and it's resolved. I don't know, maybe more dialogue, more backstory. I just need a little more in that regard, but it's coming together really nicely, really beautifully.
Thank you, Kay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so Suman, thank you so much for submitting this piece. I don't think I've ever really gotten to see a full length piece from you, so this is wonderful. You just have such a wonderful way with words. You have a voice. We talk about this elusive thing like voice. What is that? It's like a style that the writer has and how they write. And you have one so strong. And, I will say, knowing you, I could hear you in your narrator, but she also seems like a character to me. So it's like both things are true. Like, I know that you're fictionalizing true stories. So it's like, I can feel that overlap. I love her turns of phrase. I love your imagery. I highlighted a lot of lines that really moved me. It really spoke to me. And there's a kind of plucky optimism or something. I don't know how to describe it about your narrator that I really love. She's got this like sort of ability to sort of go through hardship in a way that doesn't make her woe is me and self-pitying, at least not the version who's being written. I don't know if the actual young girl felt that way. So it's just really, I really enjoyed the voice, the energy, and the personality of the narrator. She came through very strong. And there were so many details. You also do a really beautiful job with the specific detail, giving us moments where we can really see what's happening. And because of that, then there were other places where I wanted more of that. So I felt like there were places where I wanted more scene and less exposition. And I think I even left a note in there, like, I don't know if this is because you're telling yourself the story still. So I don't expect you to have gotten this in the first draft. But there were places where, particularly the relationship with her father, I really wanted to see that in scene. Like I sensed how, because you tell us how uptight, how controlling, how cruel he could be, but I didn't really see it in action, except for the scene with the slap is like so profound because it's one of the few moments we actually see it unfold in person. And we saw both sides of it. We saw, the dog attacked her dress. She had nothing to do with it. It wasn't her fault. And then for the first reaction of his to be a slap is so telling. And there are some beautiful lines about sort of how she anticipates him, like, and what she will and won't say and all that stuff that I thought was beautifully done, where it really reveals the tension between them and the pain. And yet your narrator never feels to me like she feels sorry for herself, which on the other hand, there are times where I was like, especially if you fictionalize it, I thought you might be able to give her a little bit of self-pity or a little bit of like sorrow, to have a real, like, I think it's okay that she cuts herself off in places, but I also felt like, you know, what does happen to those feelings? Where do they go? Because they don't go away, right? They get channeled into behaviors, thoughts, negative thought processes. So I wondered if maybe what she does is she internalizes it and then becomes critical to herself, which is kind of what I sense going on. But I thought you could play that up a little bit more. Like she takes dad's anger, absorbs it, and then it's like, you know, why aren't you good enough? Why aren't you better? Blah, 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 blah. So I really think mostly for me, just putting certain things in scene would really just wake this piece up completely, because it's all there. Everything is there. You've got tension and conflict and wonderful stuff. And then I think actually by drawing out in scenes the relationship with the father, you might be able to insert that backstory about him without it being exposition dump, but like maybe he reveals pieces of his history in dialogue to her, or maybe her mother reveals it about him. That often happens, right? Well, your father had a terrible childhood or something, and you know, what do you mean? What happened to him? And then she can explain those things. So yeah, but I felt for her, I felt like her stoicism, it made me frustrated for her, because I wanted her to be able to break down and cry, but I also recognized that she can't in the environment she's in. She would only be told to get it together. So I really felt that. And I think you did a beautiful job. Yeah, so that was mainly it. I left some specific comments in the document about where I'd like to see more seen. And occasionally I felt like your narrator has such a colorful and beautiful way of describing things that sometimes the sentence would be like a paragraph. So I was like, maybe this could be 2 sentences, but all of what you have going for you is wonderful. You're the kind of writer, you pour it all in and then you just have to kind of revise it out. So, all right, now I apologize for shutting you down earlier, but that's the rule. So I just, now you can have your say with us.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for all your lovely comments. Oh gosh, you made me, I was afraid I was going to break down because I was so scared that all of you would hate my work. It's been like so tense the whole time. And I really, really appreciate everything that you said. And Debbie, I'm so sorry. That was the part that I was a little worried about, but I was like, should I be, maybe I'll try and rewrite it so that it doesn't sound judgmental of others. That's how I felt, and I thought I should be honest about how I felt, and so I wrote it down. But I will certainly try and rewrite that part. But what I did want to say was I wrote this whole thing and it came to 35 pages and I was like, oh my gosh, it needs to be 15. So I cut it down and made it 15. And then the day that I thought I would give it, I think which was a Sunday, I suddenly realized it needs to be 15 double space and not 15 single space. So actually I wrote 70 pages, made it 30 pages, and somehow made it 18. So I apologize. I was worried that it was all like cut. So there was a lot of backstory about why my father was the way he was, and lots of like biological. He was in a war. Politics in India was crazy, and he was this very patriotic man, and he was afraid. And there's a lot about, there's so much in there that I had to cut off pretty much like 80% of the thing. So but also I thought, like, I'm sure you know that this is just 15 pages of this very long thing that I'm writing. And so definitely I do intend to put all of that in. And I know I struggle with scenes. I definitely need to do that. I know I tend to put too much backstory where the front story gets gobbled up. And so I need to somehow like see what we went our entire class today and try and do that. I might have to end up making it like the braided approach or something.
I thought about that for you.
Yeah, because it was just so hard. But yeah, I mean, I felt bad stopping right at the point that the ball starts. But then 15 pages or 18 pages were up, but I have continued writing, and I'm actually still not done with that. So just everything came pouring in, and the first part actually I know someone said you should start with the part about the father, the encounter between father and the father saying you're going to a ball. I actually had started at that point, but then that other thing with my mom did happen, and I was like, oh, I want to put this in, so maybe not. And then the part about things being resolved was my way. So I guess that was wrong. That was my way of giving a teaser saying, don't worry, readers, it is all going to be better. And you will you will know a lot about it, but maybe I shouldn't. I don't know.
No, I think on the opposite end, keep the tension alive by not by making us wonder how it's going to work out.
Okay, I think that is more like the guilt in me writing
I
about this
know,
because,
I know.
I love my parents so much, and everything's forgiven and forgotten, and I was feeling bad, but I was like, I need to write this down. It was just
You
dying
have
to
to fight that guilt urge is what I would say. Fight it because from a reading standpoint, it's actually more powerful when you let us wonder. We have to get to the end of the book. We have to earn
Right.
the healing alongside your narrator.
Okay.
I know it's hard. Trust me, I know. But right now, remember, you're just writing for you. You don't have to show it to anyone right now, except us. But no one else has to know if you don't want them to. So right now, this is for you.
Thank you. I will definitely do everything, all the lovely suggestions. I will definitely take that and make all the different changes. And yeah, I know I tend to have verbal diarrhea and I can't help myself. They just come in. So I do have to curtail some of that.
I think you have to, you should also admire your loquaciousness because it's a gift. And many of us would love to be able to put things the way that you do. So, well, thank you. And I'm so glad that, you had a positive experience of the critique. I'm sad to just end on a oh, this is our last class. For now, obviously, I know some of you can't, or, schedules may prevent you from returning in August, but I do hope that you will consider it. And after the second session, if you want to keep going, but in a slightly different format, my other group, which meets at 1, will have a few spaces open. And that one, what we do is we read a book, a memoir or a memoir and essays, and we have more of a book chat instead of a lesson. I mean, lessons come through in it, so there's still plenty of lesson.
That's great.
And so that's also a fun way to do it. Now that one's the same day, it just starts earlier at 1. But I would love to work with some of you again. And also many of my classes are going to be offered asynchronously now, which means you will be able to watch the videos at home, get a critique from me, have a coach, like a coaching call, whatever that means, a 30-minute session with me. And you just wouldn't have the peer group part. And so if you don't have time to make classes, but you still want to benefit, that's another option. So that will be, there'll be a registration option for that on my website when that gets done. So. But most of all, I just want to tell you how much I have loved working with you all and what a privilege it is to listen to read, to be part of your stories, because you're all sharing such vulnerable, beautiful work. And I hold it very precious that you share it with us. This means a lot to me. And it's really, these classes are my favorite part of the week. So thank you for sticking it out. So let's finish up with our goals, even though we won't meet next week, still set some gentle goals, and we'll finish with that. All right, Debbie. You're muted. Oh, no, you're not muted. You're just making
First of all, thank you, Mary Chuck. Learned so much from you and been inspired by you, and I'm so grateful. And even though I have to take a break, I'll be back.
Yay.
When that period of time is over. But I'm going to try to get over myself and actually commit to a time that I'm going to write and try to silence that voice in my head that says, tomorrow, not today.
Good. I love that. I really want that for you too. So let us know how it goes. Send me an email.
Thank you.
Suman.
Again, yeah, I second what Debbie said. Thank you so much, Jordan. I know you as a friend. I know you as a guru, as I call you, and you're amazing both ways. And yeah, so what I plan to do is I kept writing and I haven't yet finished writing about the balls. I'm going to continue and then just keep going. I feel like I have this huge flood of words coming, and I hope to be able to put it on paper or virtually on my laptop.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I just say let it come and write for yourself for now. Okay. Jessie.
Oh, let's see. Same goal.
Next time we talk,
one day I'm gonna do it. It'll be August. I'll be like, hey, that goal. Remember that goal?
Girl, I need to take your class to finish that goal.
And I just want to say thank you. And this class has been so enjoyable. Thank all of you. I've really enjoyed reading all of your work and getting to know you. And it's really been, very instrumental in keeping me focused on my project. So thank you. And I can't believe we have to wait until August.
And also, I may have a guest speaker in the meantime about some topics. So if like where I open it up to both sessions of this class. So if I do, of course, you're all invited. So I'll let you know. All right, Karen.
Well, I am working my way up to another big dump. So I'm hoping I'm going to get there at some point. And just Jordan, you've been awesome. And what Jesse said, you guys have all been awesome. I write with another group, and just having a different group of people in such an amazing and interesting group of women has been very empowering for me.
Yay.
And helped me write about stuff that is really hard for me to get out. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
All right, Kay.
Well,
Say your goal, Karen? You did. Sorry, working up to another big word dump. Got it. Sorry. Now, Kay.
okay. Yeah, I also want to say thank you, Jordan. This was a great class, and all of the lessons were super helpful in fleshing out, moving further. My goal is just to keep writing, and the more you talk, the more you discuss, the more things develop. So yesterday I had a very different idea when I was talking to Jordan about what I wanted to write about, and today after your lesson it just became something else. And so it's really, really interesting and productive to have these classes and conversations. I want to thank everybody, because just learning about your stories, not only being in that process, the journey with you on craft, but also just getting to know all of you has been really, really enjoyable. So just want to encourage everyone to keep writing and stay in touch if you want to.
Thank you, Kay. Yeah, you guys have each other's email addresses and use them, or message me if you can't find it. All right, Shivali.
I just wanted to say I agree with what everyone's been saying. I've really enjoyed this class. This is the second one of the nonfiction one that I've taken with you, Jordan. And I've really enjoyed just allowing myself to feel like I'm part of this writing group. Many of you, you write regularly, and Jordan, you published, all these things. I mean, I feel like there's been a welcoming feeling that you were talking about earlier about baby steps. I feel like I've been able to baby step my way into feeling like, hey, I kind of write. I tell my husband, my kids, like, I'm going to be going to my writing thing now. Yes. And I've done some other writing thing. It's more like a psychological process, but this is like writing. We're writing and we're sharing our writing that's supposed to be potentially published. It's a very nice feeling. It's been a very welcoming community, and I've really appreciated that. And seeing what others have been writing too, and not in a comparative sense, just to be like, no, I can be here. This is good. I like it. So my goals for the future are just, I hope to keep writing, but I remember you said anything can be a goal, and I'm a big reader. So I'm going to keep reading. I love reading. And I'm just going to keep doing that. And just to throw that out there to you too, as a question, like I've taken a couple of your non-writing fiction ones. And since I don't have a key plan necessarily to do a memoir, I was wondering about trying your fiction one too, just because I don't know where I'm going to land, but I thought, hey, I want to.
All my fiction classes give you techniques you can apply to memoir. And the one that's coming up in July is scenes, which everybody needs. So that will be useful. After that, it's going to be a character development, and then back to page turning tension. So that's please, absolutely. You're very welcome.
I thought just though, I love the group of people. Like last time I enjoyed it too, this one too. So I'm kind of like, no, I want to hang out with the same people.
Every group is different. Like it has a different energy. Like this group for me has had a really nice energy that you can't really put your finger on it. Sometimes it just gels. And then other times you're like, so this one gelled. I love it.
Yay.
So thank you all. I will, you know where to find me. I'm never really gone. So message me. We can chat, Zoom. And if we're living in the same area, take a walk. So. All right, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you hopefully in the very near future.
Okay.
Hi, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.